Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for today's NCUA webinar on CDRLF success stories. I'm George Cody, an instructional systems specialist in the Office of Credit Union Resources and Expansion at the NCUA, and I'll be your moderator for today's program. Before we begin, I have a few administrative announcements. If you're having any problems hearing my voice, please adjust the volume on your computer. And if you are still having problems, use the Q&A feature at the right-hand corner of your console to send us a message, and our tech support team will help you right away. Please make sure that you allow pop-ups from this site. In approximately 2 weeks, the webinar will be closed captioned for on-demand viewing in the NCUA Learning Management System. You will be able to review the webinar and download a PDF version of the presenters' PowerPoint presentations. You need to have an account on the NCUA LMS to access our educational resources. There is no charge for the account setup and access. The LMS is available to credit unions only. If you need to set up an account, you can go to ncua.gov/support services, credit union resources and expansion, and select learning. Before we begin, I have a disclaimer that I must read out to you. The materials presented in this webinar are intended as an informative and educational summary on CDRLF success stories. The NCU has taken reasonable measures to ensure the quality of the data and other information produced by the NCU that's available in this presentation. The NCUA, however, makes no warranty, express or implied, nor assumes any legal liability or responsibility for the accuracy, correctness, or completeness of any information that's available through this presentation, nor represents that its use would not infringe on privately owned rights. The slides are intended for educational and discussion purposes and do not constitute legal advice nor replace independent professional judgment. Reference to any specific commercial product, process, or service by trade name, trademark, manufacturer, or otherwise does not constitute an endorsement, recommendation, or favoring by the U.S. government or the NCUA. This is our agenda for today's webinar. Christy Kubista-Hovis, Director of Resources, Office of Credit Union Resources and Expansion, will give our introductory remarks and introduce our facilitator, Joshua Krantz. We will introduce our speakers and then start the panel discussions. We will have time for Q&A, our upcoming events, and I will provide our contact information at the end. You may send your questions during the presentation using the Q&A feature at the bottom of your console. Please take a moment right now to answer our polling question for us. Which asset range represents your credit union? A, up to 50 million, B, 51 million to $250 million, C, 251 to 500 million, D, 501 to 1 billion, E, over 1 billion, or F, not a credit union. We like to gauge the range of credit unions that we have on our webinar, so this will help us make that determination. I see that we have quite a few mix of credit unions here. Okay, it's coming in. We'll leave it up for a few more seconds. That's a good mix of credit unions that we have here. Thank you for your responses. I will now turn the program over to Kiosk Resources Division Director, Christy Kubista-Hovis. Over to you, Christy.
Thank you. Good afternoon or good morning to everybody whoever's on the call. I'm very excited to introduce this webinar. I'm Christy Gibastohovis. I am the Director of Resources here at the Office of CURE. We are in charge of not only the training and the development portion of the grants. We're responsible not just for the grants and loan programs, but also the training and development for credit unions, as well as our MDI programs. So our division is quite active in all things training and supporting credit unions. I do want to stress that we have over 214 courses now on the LMS that are available for you to review for free. And all our webinars that we host, we actually put on LMS, so you're able to get, it's a one-stop shop for free for credit unions to learn. We even have a course on how to apply for grants. And if I looked at it, maybe one or two people have really reviewed it in the last year. So just a word of word to the wise that we do have some training geared specifically for writing those grant applications. But with that, I'm going to it's my pleasure to introduce Josh Krantz, who is our new program, or not new, but he is our official program manager for the Grants and Loans program. Reports directly to me. Josh joined NCUA in December of 2018 and has worked in numerous federal programs, including HUD and the CDFI fund. Through the CDRLF, Josh and the Grants and Loans team have provide low-income and minority credit unions with technical grants and loans to build their capacity and reach underserved communities. So with that, to take it away, Josh.
Hi, everyone. I'd like to now introduce our panel. These are all credit unions who have participated in the CDRLF program and are excited to share their stories with you. First, we have Megan Snyder, who is the passionate Vice President of Strategic Partnerships and Portfolio Management, who leads with focus, transparency, and heart. Her 18 years of leadership, sorry, I'm hearing myself in the background, sorry. Her 18 years of leadership, project management, lending, and member service experience have allowed her to make impactful change at Unitus Community Credit Union. In her role, she leads company-wide initiatives that support the community and overall strategy. Shivers, has been president and CEO of Caro Federal Credit Union since 1995. Prior to her joining Caro, she served as president of Seaboard Trust Federal Credit Union in Florence, South Carolina for 6 years. Before becoming president, Ann worked in all areas of the credit union operation, including loans, operations, member services, data processing, and more. She is a graduate of Francis Marion University and the University of Georgia Credit Union Management School. And finally, we have Mike Akers, who is currently the president and CEO of Hello Credit Union. Mike has spent over 20 years in financial services, starting his career on the front line. He has gone on to serve in nearly every capacity in the credit union, becoming CEO of what was then Flag Credit Union in 2019. Quickly after becoming CEO, the low-income designated credit union received its Community Development Financial Institution certification and began pursuing grants and helping its members. So we're going to start off by having each panelist just provide a brief description of their credit union and the project that they've completed with the CDRLF grant funds. Megan, we can start with you.
Yeah, good afternoon, and thank you for having me, Joshua, and the entire NCUA team. As he mentioned, I'm Megan. I work at Unitus Community Credit Union. We have 13 branches that serve Oregon and Washington. We started as a segment credit union for our Oregon telecommunications company, and now we like to say our mission is people helping all people here at Unitus. We're very focused on ensuring that we're providing solutions that help all of our community, and you see that in the initiatives that we support. The grant application that we have is one of those. We started on a very special journey with the Urban League of Portland in 2020 when our country and our state was in turmoil. COVID-19 and the pandemic had just started. The tragic death of George Floyd had just happened, and our city was about to begin a 100-day protest journey. So local Oregon credit union leaders came together and said, what can we do more to help and be intentional? And through that, a collective came together to support the Urban League of Portland of 5 local credit unions. It's a really special collaborative, but quickly we recognized to operationally support it, it was challenging. We also saw that there could be opportunities to better the member experience, and that's where our project financial stability came into play. And what we submitted for in our application and the grant we were awarded was to create an application and a website to connect the Urban League community with these local 5 credit unions in an equitable, relevant, and relatable fashion, and do so all while relieving the burden of operationally supporting it, both for the Urban League and the credit unions. So that's what we submitted and were able to create and implement last year.
Great, thank you. Anne, can you tell us a little bit about your credit union and your project?
Yes, I'm at Caro Federal Credit Union, and we were formed in the 1960s, serving primarily the University of South Carolina's faculty and staff. We're much smaller than Megan's credit union. We're only about $120 million in assets with 8,200 members. But we have expanded beyond just the University of South Carolina. We have had 3 small mergers and have extended to other colleges and universities. So we cover all economic levels of individuals. And through that, though, we all know that credit unions are really needed for certain parts of the community more than others. A lot of people of higher income, they have plenty of choices. So we've tried to be more focused on those folks who need us more. In South Carolina, it is legal to charge any interest rate at all as long as you file it with the state of South Carolina. So it's not illegal to charge 400, 500%. So we're trying to help those folks with more modest means. We are low income designated, and we became a CDFI a few years ago. And if you know South Carolina, we're a beautiful state, but we have a lot of low income folks. So our key is to try to find real solutions for real people. And that's our little slogan to try to keep us going. But with low income, we see small businesses as a real good way to help people change their economic situation. So Caro has been working for, over 10 years now with small business loans that our sweet spot's between $250,000 to $750,000. Now that's big loans for us, but for the banks, of course, that's really small. So we've gotten a lot of success with that. And as we've learned more, we're like, okay, we're glad we can do that, but we really need to be helping startups or very small businesses, those businesses that maybe the owner is working full-time in a job and growing a small business on the side. So when we applied for this grant, it was to do just that, to try to make sure we understood what the landscape was for those micro business loans, and then to decide how we can actually safely make loans to those groups. So this study included a demographic study and then a feasibility study, and then software automation tools to help us actually manage this, assuming that it made sense to move forward. So because of this grant, though, we went from just thinking about it and wanting to do it to, since we wanted to actually getting it done. So we're real excited about possibilities and how it's helped us get here.
Thanks. That was really interesting. Finally, Mike, if you'd like to share your story.
So on September 28th of this year, we became Hello Credit Union, the sunny side of money. We have approximately 12,500 members and about 165 million in assets. We rebranded because we started actually as 2 different credit unions. We were Bay Credit Union in Panama City, Florida, which started as the credit union for international paper mill employees back in 1952. And then Flag Credit Union, which was the credit union for employees of the Florida Department of Agriculture in 1960. So as you pointed out in my bio, I started at Flag in 2019 as the CEO. and then became the CEO of Bay Credit Union in 2020, which resulted in the merger of the two credit unions in 2022. When I started, both credit unions were already low-income designated organizations, but we then became CDFIs, and then collectively a CDFI is our merged organization. We're based in the Florida Panhandle with 5 branch locations ranging from Panama City Beach to Tallahassee. So to give you a little perspective, that's about 2.5 hours in the car. Despite being our state capital, Tallahassee specifically has the poorest zip code in the state of Florida, and Leon County, which is where Tallahassee is, also has the highest crime rate per capita in the state, higher than even places like Miami-Dade County in South Florida. So certainly have our share of challenges. Plus, Florida, and the Panhandle specifically, has a handful of larger cities, but for the most part is pretty rural. So we have a lot of lower paying hospitality-based jobs and very limited public transportation. So if you live further out where it's more affordable, it's much more difficult to get to the higher paying jobs. So we used our CDRLF program to certify 100% of our staff as Community Development Certified Financial Counselors. I know that's a mouthful, so CDCFCs. This included everyone from our part-time marketing specialists to our senior executives. We used the HERO CDCF program through CU Strategic Planning, which gave our staff practical tools needed to identify, intervene, and counsel members that were struggling with some of our regional financial challenges. Our coaching included tips on how to avoid or break relationships with higher cost predatory lenders, payday loans, and check cashers, and then how to establish basic budgeting skills, educating members on how credit scores worked, and ultimately how to buy or lease a car or purchase a home. So our goal was to assist with establishing or improving the financial stability of low-income households within our field of membership.
Great, thanks. So you guys can see there's been a range of projects that have been completed with CDRLF grants. And I was wondering, Megan, what's your history with the CDRLF program? How many times have you applied in the past? And again, something to think about is how did your credit union decide which initiative to apply for and which project to complete?
Yeah. So this was our first experience applying for an NCUA grant, and we selected the underserved outreach grant based on the problem we were trying to solve and the solution that we were recommending. Apps and developing new websites are costly. So we had this beautiful idea, but the funds to make it come to life were challenging. This grant that we applied for really allowed us the green light to go ahead and develop it and support this community and this special collaborative that we have here in Oregon. So it was our first time applying, but I will say it wasn't our last. This was an outstanding experience for us. It was a great journey just to even apply. It helped ensure that we had thought out the project really well and looked at the data, looked at the community, looked at the solution to ensure what we were imagining could indeed impact, and it did. So, but yeah, this was our first time applying for a grant, and that's how we selected it for the solution we created.
Great. And what about your credit union? What's your history with the program? How did you assess the needs of the community that you were serving?
Well, as you can tell, I've been around for a few years. I'm not new into the industry, and I've seen NCUA's emails for years about grant opportunities. And I guess I always assumed it was for someone else because I didn't know anything about grants. So we had just been going through the process with the CDFI application, and we're working with a local consultant, Scott Butterfield, actually. And we're like, I see this from NCUA. I don't know if it's really something we can qualify for. And so that was our first time too, Megan. So it was our try because we were trying to be more open to opportunity. Being a smaller credit union, you get where you're juggling all the time. What am I going to do next? And since we were trying to work on the CDFI and the low income designation, we said, well, let's give it a shot. And let's try to tag it into something that we have a passion with, something that we're good at, but that we could be better by extending our service opportunities.
Thank you. Mike, how about you? What's your history with us, and what did you do to determine what your credit union needed?
So we've applied 3 times and received the grant twice through NCUA. The one that I'm discussing today was also our first time out, and we had eventually applied for it at Bay and received the same grant, and were able to kind of create that foundation. And that was what we were really looking for, is me being newer to the organization in 2019, really trying to define who we were and who we wanted to be when we grew up, is the saying we like to say too. And so looking for something that could help define us and kind of bring us together. So much like some of the organizations that were mentioned prior, in terms of, we knew what we were doing, but how do we kind of create a consistent foundation? So I felt like staff education was first, and then we could graduate into some of these other more specific programs that could kind of help out in other ways. It also kind of helped reinforce internally like who we are to our staff, and kind of set the priorities as it pertains to interacting with our members. So sure, we want to make loans, we want to keep the lights on, but spending an extra 30 minutes or 45 minutes talking with your member about how we can help them overcome some of these regional challenges, and making sure that staff understood that that was just as much of a priority, kind of really helped define our corporate culture. So that's kind of where we got started and kind of where we are now.
Great. And what I loved about the 3 projects that you all did was just, there's a lot of, I've heard the word passion there, you know, a couple of times, and you know, the CDRLF program provides resources both internally, such as training, and externally for your community. So I really like, Mike, that idea of graduating, you know, from a training grant into something maybe a little bit more outward facing. Something like, you know, what our other panelists had done. So I really enjoy hearing that. So Megan, my next question is, you know, did everything go as planned? You know, you guys apply in the spring, by the beginning of the fall, the awards are made, and then you have 12 months to carry it out. So, you know, was it smooth sailing? What challenges came up? Did you have to course correct? How did you respond? If you just kind of go into the implementation part of that project.
Yeah, you know, another great question. I think in general, the project plan we had and what our goal was, what we created went as planned. If anything, it ended up being a better product than we had originally envisioned as we went through the journey. I think a lot of that goes back to, again, the application. We were really thoughtful in the application, and to go through the journey right and to apply for it, you have to really have a thoughtful business plan. And so it allowed us to go through that journey and ensure that we had everything ready to go if indeed we were awarded the grant. What went wrong was, I think we were over optimistic on timing. You know, there's people involved in this, and so there's PTO and sick days and holidays, and so and we wanted to make sure it was properly tested. We wanted to ensure we were working with those community partners and other credit unions, and that just needed time to do it the right way. That was important to us. We could get it to production and turn it on, but we wanted to make sure the product was right. But we partnered with you and your team, and we received 2 extensions, and we were able to show the progress we were making. We were able to show each stage that we were at, but both times it just had to do with time. And often it was simply managing PTOs, conferences. And so oftentimes we needed to continue to extend some of the items, but the NCUA team was wonderful. They were, you know, good partners throughout it, and allowed us the time we needed to really ensure what we were building was the right product for the community.
Thanks. And how about you? What went well? What went wrong? What not wrong? What challenges did you experience? And how did you respond?
Well, Ashley, the only problem we had was juggling priorities, I guess, and then making sure the scheduling happened. So we wanted to make sure we did it in order. It's sort of new for us on the demographic studies and feasibility studies. We've done them in-house, but to outsource them to get somebody else that didn't have a preconceived idea to do that. And so getting interviews scheduled and getting the final reports, we wanted to get that done before we committed to the software enhancements. And of course, software enhancements never happen as quick as you want. So that's where our bog down was on the testing of some of that. And we appreciate NCUA being willing to give us an extension.
More than happy to help. Glad we were able to. So Mike, same question.
Sure. So the program itself was exactly what we were looking for in terms of how we could execute it and the way it was done online. So it was pretty accessible and digestible. I think, like the other answers, time is always, what credit unions are always struggling with the most, especially smaller organizations, and keeping folks motivated, because it's like, oh, I'm already wearing 3 hats. Now I have to learn this additional skill, or I've worked here a long time. I already know how to do this. So keeping folks motivated through the process, in addition to doing all of your other things, learning this cool new skill that you could use to ultimately help yourself. So a lot of staff got excited because of things that they could use with their own family or the members that were already very comfortable with. So keeping folks motivated, and then making sure that you don't just check the box and move on. So you don't put it in the drawer and move on after the project's done. You have to continue to have it infused into your staff trainings and your corporate updates and strategic plan to make sure that it's not something that you just like set it and forget it. Like, you have to continue to foster it once the program is live. So, I would say that's the biggest challenge, but one that we've addressed, and we're, continuing to keep that part of the discussion.
Great. And 2 takeaways I heard there, especially were, things ended up better than we had anticipated, and also not to put things in the drawer and forget about them. So Megan, how you had mentioned that it came out a little bit better than you were expected. So were you surprised by the results? How did the outcome of the project differ than, the 12 or plus months earlier when you had originally conceived of the project and applied?
Yeah, so what we did was, again, we were trying to create a tool, and I love these ideas because all 3 of them really just lean back to financial wellness for our community. So the goal was to link Urban League of Portland with credit unions, but the linkage is through a financial coach. How can we connect with them and ensure we're meeting their goals? The way it turned out better was, as we started to work with the community, as we started to work with the Urban League and receive their feedback, we recognized there was additional things they were needing. And so we were able to add on to the solution. So it wasn't just a connection to a financial coach. So for instance, they wanted resources, a place where they could go to have trusted resources. So we added a section for that. I think people come to a credit union and think we do it all, right? We're a financial institution. So can you help me with my insurance? And what about, can you help me with estate planning? And there's layers to this where it's connected, but not always us. And so we were able to say, okay, how can we get them to trusted partners in a trusted place so that their holistic journey of wellness is taken care of? So that's one example. We also recognize there was opportunity for some templates in there, like how to create a budget, how to determine wants and needs. So we were able to really expand on this idea and build a larger tool, not just for connection, but that a member can go back to and have tools in their toolkit to help them along the way, no matter where they're at in their journey. So if they're coming for a car loan today, in a year or 2 from now, they can look at first-time home buying, or they can look at retirement, or maybe they need to rebuild credit, and the tool is still there no matter the place. So that's how it was built, but it was really through the testing and conversations, and then this new partnership that we had in collaborative, where we found the additional opportunities. And again, through the grant, we were able to say, hey, let's give this a try, or let's add a few more things to this.
Oh, that was great. And what were your outcomes versus your expectations? Did you have any surprises that were, pleasant surprises at the end?
Well, you don't apply for something without thinking you know the answer ahead of time. But we actually came back and realized that the need in our area was more than we had expected. So that reinforced that we're going down the right track. And then the feasibility study, though, said basically you're not going to get rich on this, and you've got to be careful about the risk that you're accepting. We knew some of that, but it helped our board make a decision about how much we were going to put in and how we were going to address this. yes, they came away saying there's a real need, but we got to be careful. We want to keep Caro strong down the road so it can help more members. So it was very good at helping us understand better that risk.
Great. And Mike, what about your project?
I think one of the biggest surprises was how staff saw it as a tool for themselves first, and then also as kind of a pivoting point when we weren't able to be that solution, like Megan was saying, everyone looks to us to kind of be the solution for everything. But say we can't approve your loan, or you're going through a challenge that we couldn't necessarily address directly, being able to kind of pivot and get them to the right resources. And also redefining who we are as an organization. So when people say like, well, what does a credit union do? A lot of people think, well, checking and savings or maybe car loans. But I think if the primary message then becomes, we're also your trusted financial advisor. So we are certified financial counselors. 100% of our staff are certified financial counselors. So really in every decision we make, whether it be in accounting or marketing or on the front line, that's still in the back of our mind or even in the front of our mind saying, okay, well, how is this going to support that initiative? So what started as a really small project had this ripple effect in all of the different areas of the organization that ultimately led to additional grants and additional opportunities, and just, again, just defining who we are and how people saw us inside the organization and outside the organization.
Oh, that's great. I think the next thing I wanted to talk about is it's my favorite part of coming to work every day. But can you all share a story from an individual member who was either directly or indirectly impacted by the project? Megan, you want to start us with that?
Yeah, I would love to. I don't know if I have one particular story. I think the beauty of this project was we have stories. Two of my favorites, though, I'll share. So the first is we piloted our solution live first with the Urban League staff, and I think we were just hoping to get their feedback and see, you know, from them, you know, how is this tool working? But I think what we didn't recognize was how many used it and how many ended up connecting with credit unions, how many gave feedback like it's so wonderful to have a tool where we see ourselves in it, where we feel safe and trust with a financial institution. And I think there was a lot of aha moments as we built this where we had great intentions, but we didn't realize how needed that the solution was. And then I think the other one was we had a member connect with a credit union through our tool, which we call AZ. And they said once they became members, they shared stories of prior experiences where they faced discrimination and they faced entering a bank and didn't feel like they belonged. And since then, they have a car loan, they have minor accounts opened, they have a small business loan for their side hustle, and they have recently been pre-approved for their very first home. So it's exciting that we as a credit union can be that place for them, because that's what we're here for and that's what we were built for. And I'm grateful that we were able to build a tool where they felt comfortable enough with their community partner support and with this collective of 5 credit unions to connect with us. So those are just a few examples, but there's many, which is what's the beautiful part of this.
That is a lot of that is very good to hear. I mean, I love hearing these stories. How about Anne? How about you?
Well, we haven't implemented it as long as Megan has with our project, but we have implemented it and we've done our first micro business loan. This individual became a new member for us and was actually referred to us from a member who joined about a year ago with very poor credit, and we gave her a chance, and then she goes and I actually meet her at an event and she says, well, let me tell you about so-and-so. So it turns out that so-and-so just got a $16,235 loan to buy a car haul trailer. So this gentleman had done a little bit of work in this area, and he had been saving his money, and he bought a truck, and he wanted to get into this business full time, hauling cars, up to 3 cars at a time up and down East Coast. And he just got his loan for his brand new trailer, and now he is off and going.
That's wonderful. It's absolutely fantastic. Now, Mike, before you share your story, I just want to again kind of show a little bit of differentiation between the two types of projects. Megan and Ann had obviously outward facing projects that were reaching into the community. Your project was more capacity building, internal. So, when I get the reports from our grantees, a lot of times these are for internal capacity building projects, and it's hard to pin a direct result or impact on a member's story. So I'm really interested to see how your project, reached into the community.
Yeah, I think that's the story of credit unions, though. It's very hard sometimes to kind of extrapolate out our impact on the community anyways. We talk about, keeping competition in check and just the direct value that we have. So, and one of the biggest things too is a lot of us don't get into this to pat ourselves on the back. So a lot of us do it because, like you said prior, we have this passion to do it. We get excited to be able to help people. It just happens to come in the form of financial products and services. So one of the examples that we have is kind of multifaceted, and we'll call them Mr. and Mrs. Smith just for their own, privacy reasons. But Mr. and Mrs. Smith, we're talking to one of our collection specialists. So obviously they were already in kind of a world of hurt, right? And Mr. Smith had been working side jobs over the last couple of years. He'd been laid off. Mrs. Smith was a waitress for over 20 years at a local restaurant that was very popular. But one of the things we didn't talk about when we introduced our credit union is the environmental factors of being in the Sunshine State, which is hurricanes. So in 2018, we had Hurricane Michael basically destroy the Panhandle, and of course impacted Mr. and Mrs. Smith greatly. And so they had to turn to check cashing stores, again, some of the high cost predatory style lenders that we talked about prior. And so it got themselves into a lot of debt, and we're able to work with our collection specialists kind of one-on-one and get them a budget, kind of work within their means, try to prioritize where their money was going. And much like the project in general, have those reinforced conversations every 30 days, every 60 days. So we're constantly checking back to see, is there progress being made, or do we also have to kind of shift directions? So I think there's so many stories like that we can tell. If we choose to kind of write that down, and like I said, sometimes it's hard to kind of to capture that and try to take credit for that, when in reality it's the member picking themselves up with just a little bit of guidance.
Yeah, that's a fantastic story. It really is. So the next thing I wanted to ask was, the CDRLF awards are relatively small in the grand scheme of things, $5,000 to $50,000 on the larger end. So Megan, how are you able to leverage that funding to bring a bigger impact?
Yeah, we were grateful to receive the larger one, the $50,000 grant. With that said, our project was over $200,000, so it was an investment. We were able to make it happen through the support of our leadership and our board, and through our project plan. We knew the impact and the potential that this application could have. We also saw the opportunity for the scale of it. So if it can be successful here in this model, where else can we utilize it for impact? What other organizations can we reach out to? And I think that was the exciting part of this solution. And what we see going forward, so much so that we've had other community partners before we've reached out have been knocking on Unitus's door saying, can we have something like this too? Can we have a connection like this also, or a tool to help with financial coaches? And so we're already starting those conversations and asking, what would that look like? And what could we do to replicate the same model to help others? But it really took just thoughtful planning on, what impact the tool can have across how many groups and how many organizations, and support from our board and leaders, understanding that digital experience is the way of the future, but it does require some investment of time. So that's how we got it done, but we couldn't have done it without the grant's help, for sure.
And how about your project?
Well, in our case, here again, every credit union's got lots of things that they want to do, and getting the grant made us focus on that particular project rather than all the other things that you're wanting to do. And it did cost us more than we got $50,000 also, And that's a substantial amount for a credit union like us. But it did cost us more than that. And it led to some other things that we knew we needed to do that we hadn't done. But by going through some of these studies, we went down that avenue too, such as demographic studies for other parts of the state to see how else we could help. I think the big thing, besides helping to pay for it, it just helps us focus on what's important right now. Because I got this deadline from NCUA, I better make sure I make that deadline or be very close, and I better be following up with my commitment. So that did help us get back on track when we got side going to another avenue. It's like, whoa, got to come back here, can't put it off forever. So that was one of the good things. Besides the actual money to help pay for it, it helped us with our internal commitment.
Interesting. So Mike, your project was on the lower end. It was a $5,000 grant, I believe, for training. So how were you able to leverage that funding?
Well, I like to say that we turned 5,000 into 5 million. So with that $5,000 grant, we proved to ourselves and to our board of directors and our leadership team that number one, we can be successful in achieving grants. And then taking that and getting our folks certified, again, became part of the message of the organization. So when we can say that we have 100% of our staff are certified financial counselors, that became part of other grant applications that we did. And with our CDFI communication and being able to say who we are and how we interact with the community. And since then, like I said, we've legitimately been granted $5 million, just over $5 million since 2019 between CDFI and these styles of grants and things like that. But this was our first one. And when I started with the credit union, especially in Flag, they had tried to get grants in the past and were not successful. And so they had kind of gotten a little discouraged. And so I use this as like a jump off to say, well, let's try this one. And if we can get this one, it'll just snowball. And that's what it did. It really changed the opinion of the board. It changed the opinion of our leadership team to say, yes, we can do this. Yes, it can help us focus, like to Ann's point, and kind of funnel or tunnel our focus to one thing. But again, just kind of saying that we can turn this 5,000 into much greater in our organization, both directly and indirectly.
That's amazing. I mean, from 5,000 to 5 million in a couple of years, that's awesome. Yep. It also segues nicely into our final question, which I would like to have our panelists bestow any advice for other credit unions like yours when applying for a CDRLF grant. Well, Megan, we could start with you.
Yeah, my advice is a simple one to start, which is I would encourage you all to apply. It really was the key for us to be able to create this solution that has made such a big impact to our local community and will continue to do so. I would say I would work with the application, make sure if you're interested in this to open it, well in advance, give yourself time to complete it thoughtfully. You can look at the questions before you submit and be prepared for both quantitative and qualitative stories within it. I thought the application was helpful for us. It really ensured that we had thought through the plan, thought through the project. We knew who our market was. We knew what we were trying to create and solve for. As Ann said, we knew our timelines, which is important. We do get distracted and then oftentimes have to do double work because we're restarting. So. But I would say it was really a great experience for Unitus. Again, it's not our last one. And we thought that NCUA were really great partners along the way. But I think the journey through the application all the way to submitting at the end for the grant funds really required us at Unitus to ensure we're thoughtful and intentional in our plan and the delivery of that plan.
That sounds like good advice. How about Ann? Ann, how about you?
So this was our first application, as I mentioned, and we were thrilled to win. We have applied since then and have not won. But my advice is we're just going to keep after it because any kind of grant, here again, helps us focus, and we're not going to get every one of them. But guess what? You get one or two, it's going to be well worth it. Even if it's not $5 million, it's still going to be a big deal on helping your credit union focus on what you're wanting to do. So just keep plugging away. And applications aren't that difficult for this.
Yeah, and before we get Mike's advice, I'd like to also say, my advice would be, reach out to the NCUA, reach out to the grants and loans team. We're here to help and answer any questions. So Mike, I didn't mean to usurp you. Why don't you provide your advice for the grant application?
Yeah, I'd mimic the same as what the ladies had pointed out. Just do it. Take a look at the application and even use the questions on this call to help kind of inform your own decision to say, okay, this is what I need to do. Like, can you answer these questions? Like, what does my credit union need? What does my membership need? How am I going to execute this? How will I track? Even if you're not required to track, making sure that you do have those touch points or those tracking mechanisms, and look for the success stories to keep you motivated. Even as like Ann said, sometimes you apply and don't get them. We've applied and not gotten them before too. But just keep at it and use those success stories as motivation to just get in there, check it out, and see what happens.
Thank you, Josh, for facilitating this insightful discussion. Thank you, Megan and Mike, for sharing your success stories. Ali, I see we have some questions. Can you read them for us?
Yes, we actually have quite a few questions. So one of the first ones that we got was actually inquiring about the timeline of the application for you all from the moment that you applied to when you obtained the grant and started implementing those funds.
I can take that one if you'd like, and talk about the United experience. I want to say in May 2021, June, and we received notification that we were granted the award by August. So it was a pretty quick turn time. I want to say end of August, and we began on our project September, October of that year. We had given a 12-month time frame for the project, and we extended it twice through the end of November. So we asked for 2 30-day extensions within the plan.
Fantastic.
Anybody else?
And Mike, was your timeline similar as well for your application to implementation?
Very similar for us also. We had one extension. But it's about when you get that notice, be ready to jump.
Yeah, same here.
All right. And the next question is for you specifically. It was, we are a small credit union with limited human capital as well. How did you prioritize all the things you had to do operationally within completing your project?
I took leadership on that particular project, and my chief lending officer was my right hand on it. I also outsourced to a couple of folks that I knew could help me get the job done, because being a small credit union, you can't have everything in-house. And if you're getting a little bit of money to help get it done, you can buy that service outside too. And on the software, that takes juggling. We use Meridian Link as our LOS. And if you've used Meridian Link in the past, they're good, but it is a lot of processes to follow through with.
All right, thank you so much. This is for the entire team. So the last question that we'll go ahead and ask is there anything about the entire process from beginning to end that you would do differently the next time you apply for the grant?
Mike, I can go first.
Please do.
I think just referring back to those questions, and just like we continue to say, sometimes this isn't something that you just think of on a whim. Like, this should be something that's already part of who you are as an organization, the next level of what you want your credit union to achieve, and just work it in from that perspective. So I would say just be very thoughtful about it. Pull that application, make sure you've got plenty of time to review it. Go home and sleep on it. Don't even go with your first decision or your first choice. Really think about it and get others involved in your organization, because it is going to be one more thing you have to track, one more thing you need to implement, one more thing you may need to train on. So get buy-in internally too, to make sure that everyone kind of agrees that that is the next iteration of what your organization needs to be kind of working on, and then just go at it.
I'd like to echo what Mike's saying on that, and it's about planning for your credit union. you got to figure out who you are and who you want to be 5 years from now, and you got to be working toward that. These small micro business loans has been part of what we've been wanting to do for a while. So when the application comes open, it's not like, oh geez, what can I dream up now? It's more about what's my need? Where do I want to be? And where's that passion that the credit union has? Who do you really want to be serving?
Yeah, I think I'll just echo what they said as well. I agree that we didn't look at the grant and say, okay, what can we come up with? And I think that's why the 3 of our projects were successful. We had something in mind that we were hoping to implement, we were hoping to achieve, and the grant was the tool to facilitate that goal. I would definitely give yourself time to be thoughtful. So I wouldn't do anything different. I would just encourage what we said. So like last year, for instance, we didn't apply, not because we don't believe in the program. We just didn't have something that made sense for the program last year. We have applied this year. And again, ensuring you're giving yourself the time so that you can be successful in this grant. Give yourself time to make sure that you are giving it the opportunity it deserves, and it will help you in the end because now you have it all thought out ahead of time when they do give you a yes.
Hi, this is Josh. I'd like to add to that. We have a webinar available in our LMS system on how to successfully apply for a grant. And to give you, just the broad, paint that with a broad brush, is there are 3 things that we're looking for as reviewers. We're looking for a clear need, either within the community or within your credit union. You want to identify what the project is and how it will meet that need. The second thing you want to do is provide a structure of implementation that is clear that you can do this project. I mean, you heard earlier, there are things that kind of get in the way, either time, priorities, whatever it is. And while we are willing and able to provide extensions and assistance throughout the project, your relationship with the NCUA is not just at the time of application, at the time of reporting and reimbursement, but throughout that project, you can come to us and say, hey, we're having a little bit of trouble here. We need an extension, we need a little bit more time. But in your application, you want to show that your credit union has the ability to undertake this project. And then finally, you do that. I mean, I think it was, Anne, was it you that said, who or do you want to be in 5 years? Right. So what is the impact of this project will have at the end of the 12-month performance period, but also beyond that? And not just on the credit union, but on its members and on the broader community. So again, if you go into LMS and you search just CDRLF, you'll see quite a few webinars actually, but one will be, how to apply for successfully apply for a grant or loan. And I really encourage everyone to look at that. Not necessarily when the grant round is next announced, but now, look now and see how you can find that project and how you can tell that story.
Yeah, and just to add, I recommend that webinar. So this was our 2nd time applying. I watched it before, and then even after I completed it, before I hit submit, I watched it again. It really is a great playbook for what the NCUA is looking for. And then also a shout out to the NCUA and Josh's team. He received quite a few emails from me along the way during the process, after, and just really helpful tools and guidance on where to go, where to look, what information is needed and not needed. So thank you to your team, Josh. But I just wanted to reinforce that is an outstanding webinar, and I encourage everyone to watch it.
Thank you all very much. I'd like to thank our support staff today, Ron, Ali, and Franz. We do have a couple of events coming up in November. The first is our DEI Summit, which is coming up in Washington, D.C. on November 1st and 2nd. And we do have 2 webinars in November. The first will be on November 8th on the topic Small Dollar Loan Fund. And the second will be on the future of examinations on November 30th. The slide that is coming up next has information on our Office of Consumer Access. That's their contact information. That's currently on the screen. Any information that you will need with regards to chartering, field of membership expansion. This is the email addresses that you would need and the phone number that you would need to contact them. The final slide is for the Office of Credit Union Resources and Expansion, which is our office. So any information regarding CDFI certification, grants and loans, or learning, or just any other general inquiries, these are the email addresses that you would submit them to, as well as the phone number that you see on the screen. Thank you for your attendance. Thank you for your time. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you.